teacups, what's brewing? How are you? Lovely to see you. A bit sooner than I anticipated. I did think I was going to take a couple of days between the last video and everything, but I got stuck in the house today. I had no fewer than 3 deliveries. My groceries are still on the way because they won't give me any smaller a window than between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. But I did get a message earlier saying send location. For anyone who's unfamiliar with Saudi Arabia and their postal system, nobody ever will look at an address on a parcel. You can give them the address 100 times over. The delivery man at any given point will either physically call you or send you a message on WhatsApp and say send location, and you have to pin it and send it to them. And if you don't, you don't exist. They will not read an address. They will not put it into Google Maps. They will not do this for themselves. If you don't give it to them, you're not getting the parcel. So I just got the message from the grocery people saying, well, I got an actual call being like, are you here? Because they know the compound. And I was like, yes. And they're like, okay, send location of your apartment. I was like, okay, villa this. So they might show up at some point is basically what I'm saying. If they do, apologies, apples, and I'll come back. So other than that, I had an Amazon delivery and a couple of clothes that I ordered, and they came in today. So I've just been a bit antsy in my apartment. I got some stuff done I needed to do earlier with some recruiters, but other than that, oh, speaking of recruiters, I had a couple of comments. I had one here on YouTube and I think it was one on Twitter. It must have been on Twitter. I don't really use any other platforms. Don't know why I'm confused. But one on Twitter saying, oh my God, did you lose your job? No, no, nothing like that. The way international recruitment works when it comes to teaching is it happens very early in the year. I actually had to tell my job here in December if I intended to stay for next year or not. My voice is getting croaky again, sorry. I had to tell them back in December, you sign a intent to recontract and either you say yes or no, and I told them no this time. So I'm looking for a job probably in the Middle East, but I haven't ruled out anywhere else, but currently I'm focusing on the Middle East. But hiring just works like that because visa processes can take a very long time and they want to make sure they have everything in place and everything legally completed before you get into the summer holidays, and so that everything's ready. Because the school you're in right now needs to needs new hires and needs to know their numbers pretty far in advance. And also I think there's a little bit of game playing there as well, where if they ask you super early, you haven't had a chance to get a new job yet. So you really have to think about whether you want to risk it, like letting go of one job before you get another. So that's part of it as well. But the recruitment time for international schools or the hiring of international teachers runs anywhere from December up until whenever the job is filled. So right now it's really ramping up. This is a prime hiring time for international schools. So nothing untoward happened. It's a long process and you start it early in the academic year. So for anyone who was worried about that, no, I'm not jobless. I promise I've just got a vacation this week. That's why I've got a bit more time to be chatting. But no, everything's fine. I'm just going through the job hunt process. Foodie has been back on one of the platforms. I'm just covering the one that Just Saying uploaded from yesterday, because she talks a little bit more about her channel being taken down, kind of her feelings. I feel like the thought process in her is changing a little bit more. The first time we spoke like I'm speaking to her. The first time we heard her, oh man, she was quite defiant and like, oh, you didn't do anything, I'm going to get it back, it's going to be fine. And now she seems a little bit less certain about that. She is still full out raging about Charlie Gold and Foodie Beauty reaction channel. I'm not as aware of their position in this, but apparently they're still, apparently Foodie Beauty reaction channel is still either reporting or threatening to report her other platforms. Because I don't watch her firsthand in other platforms, I'm not sure what she's doing that's against terms of service. But one of the things I notice is that she doesn't seem sure either. And having been taken off of YouTube for terms of service violation, you would think she would look really carefully at terms of service on any other platform she was doing. But we will talk a bit later about, actually, I won't get into that now, but we'll talk a bit later about some of the comments she made that made me a little concerned that she's maybe not being as thorough with her checks as she should be, eh? So she's still very much blaming Charlie Gold particularly, and reactors in general, for biting the hand that feeds them, and how dare they mass report. She's still very much, I was set up for this to happen. No. Charlie Gold reported her channel. Other people followed in her stead, but the fact is, mass reporting does happen. And it does happen deliberately, and it's not supposed to, but it does. And YouTube, I think, understands that, and that's why there's an appeals process. But if her channel didn't have problematic things on it that broke terms of service, it wouldn't matter how many people reported it, nothing would happen. I think a while back, if you remember, this was more a strike than it was a channel termination, but do you remember when Foodie reported Charlie's channel? I think it was Foodie who did, because I remember her putting on Twitter the letter she got from YouTube saying, nah fam, you good, because there was nothing in it that was against the rules. So there was nothing that anyone could do. Like, if you can report it and it can be checked, but if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. Now, Foodie is focusing more on the Omegle stuff, which was really problematic, and I think was the trigger event for a lot of this, because it was such a big thing, and anything involving minors, deliberately or not, is going to be very carefully monitored and going to be a much more hot button issue. And that in itself, Foodie was complaining on Twitter that to YouTube, saying, I didn't mean it, was just an accident, you know, and how can I be terminated for one thing and all of that? And YouTube answered, not giving a fuck at all. And they were like, actually, if it's bad enough, you can be terminated without warning for one thing. So whether it was, or whether, as I said before, death for 1,000 cuts in my previous react, I think once that trigger event had happened and they had reason to look closer at her account and take it more seriously, there would have been multiple violations, because we as a community have been noticing multiple violations. So this eternal victim narrative she's setting up of, I was a victim, I was duped, I was set up for this, and then they took me down, those idiots, doesn't really track when she's had multiple incidents that could have done this before now, and it just happened to be this one, you know? So that's kind of her anger, and that continues. It goes back and forth, and she just can't let go of the emotion of it. But we've got some other things as well in here. Speaking of mad, she's still mad at Dee Dee. Like, of all the things, she's still mad at Dee Dee. She's still making fun of Dee Dee, and something about noodles. I guess she must still be watching Nadia's channel. Like, honey, turn it off and let it go. I mean, you've done enough damage here to yourself. Just turn it off and let it go. Continue off screen with it. But every time she sees Dee Dee, she gets wound up. Every time she gets wound up, she makes a fool of herself and weakens her case. So whatever. She mentions, I hate being down on my luck. And I was sitting there like, well, who doesn't? No one likes being down on their luck. It's a terrible place to be. But right now, financially speaking, in this moment, she's okay. And based on the information she's given us, she said that she's going to get paid her final month. So assuming it doesn't get reinstated. So right now, she's not in as deep as she could be. It will take some careful planning and some hustling to get other things set up, but she's got a little bit of breathing room. So it's a massive change for her, absolutely. But this idea of, you know, again, the victimhood of it. Oh, I just hate being put in these situations. You put yourself in these situations. Instead of looking at the outside forces, look at the actions that those outside forces revealed. You know, if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. She really got stuck on a point of, I don't hurt people. Now that in itself is arguable. Because she also says she doesn't start beef. And I'm like, excuse you, madam. Excuse you, madam. I think you actually do. You do, and you've done it a lot. Times when she should just stop, she can't stop because she's so emotionally driven. She doesn't have that part of her brain that just goes, wow, this is dumb and not worth it. Let's not rage at the internet. But, you know, she's famous for her muck rages for a reason. But she does make the point, I didn't hurt anyone. Now, I personally would say the guy who accidentally made porn on the internet, because he shouldn't really be jerking off to people who turn on to him anyway, but that's not unharmful. That's a really weird way to say that. But, you know, having people on stream that haven't given their consent and then opening them up to the internet, be it minors or not minors, it's not okay and it can be harmful. And you don't know because you didn't check. So the idea that, yes, you weren't terminated for hurting people. I think you had the potential to hurt people, but actually you weren't terminated for it. You were terminated for sexual content and inappropriate content on your channel. So whether you hurt people or not, which is debatable depending on which one you look at, when you were threatening, and this is ages ago, I do realize, but when you're threatening to call CPS, when you're threatening to go and find people's family, when you're making remarks about people online, the way you have been for Dee for what, months now? Is it months now? Like, that has the potential to hurt. And don't get me wrong, it's all entertainment for us. But when you say, well, I'm not hurting people, potentially you are, but even if you weren't, that's not what your channel got taken down for. So, you know, it doesn't, as callous as this sounds, it doesn't actually matter if you were hurting people or not. That wasn't what you got terminated for. She addresses her audience. Think for a minute, guys, how different this tone is. She says, I would be devastated if I didn't have you guys every day. Yeah, I'd be devastated. I'm sure she would. At this point, the lack of attention is as damaging to her as the lack of money, because she feels it just as keenly. The money is kind of just treading water at the moment. She's not absolutely destitute yet, but the lack of attention is hitting her hard and immediately. The fact that she's very frustrated because there isn't really a platform out there that's as comprehensive as YouTube, that will alert all of her followers, that people don't have to specially sign up for. There's no easy way to transfer her audience wholesale to another place that's going to give her the benefits of YouTube. And she's feeling that more. She's getting very frustrated that the audience numbers are very low, even if they are paying. And why they would be paying, oh God, I don't know. But even if they are, you know, she doesn't appreciate what she has now at all, really. And it shows in the attitude. I think as money becomes tighter, we'll see what happens, but she doesn't seem to have learned a lot from this experience. But to be like, oh, I love you guys, I'm so excited you're here, I'm devastated without you. You probably will be at some point, but I remember when she was like, block, 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 F you, I don't care if I only have 5 subscribers. Well, she was streaming to, I think, 23 during one of her streams. She mentioned the number 23. She couldn't see the bottom and she asked, and she was like, 23, but I think it was on like the $20 tier or something. So now she's gotten her wish, you know? But she doesn't seem to be enjoying it. So there we are. Again, in terms of not starting beef, I don't say boo to Charlie. Excuse you. Not that I'm sitting here to be, you know, Charlie's white knight or anything, but excuse you. I shouldn't, says something to the effect of, she shouldn't have to put in the amount of work. She was happy with her channel. And again, block, 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 F you, I'm sick of all of you. No, you can create a new account and come back and pay me the money. You can make the effort to come and pay me money to talk to me. All of that that's been repeated and repeated over the last few months seems to be coming home to roost now, doesn't it? In terms of the terms of service stuff that I was mentioning before, she was saying if I 18 plus my stream, I should be able to sit in lingerie. And she also said, I'll try to be on my best behavior. Doesn't sound massively convincing, does it? The fact that she wasn't entirely sure if being 18 plus would allow her to do that and to show things. The fact that she's like, oh, well, I'll try. Really? Will you try really hard? No, I'm convinced that's how it is. And she's also sitting out here threatening reaction channels still, saying, you know, tell, who is it that used to be in her chat and now has a channel of their own, Dirty someone. Anyway, whoever it was, you know, tell them their reaction channel, their channel will be the first to die, and then laughing about it. And also saying a few things about YouTube, about being like, oh no, they don't seem unbiased, they, you know, and all of that. And I'm like, dude, they're reviewing your channel currently. Are you sure these are the hits you want to throw out? Are you sure? Because if I was sitting there going, pretty please, I just want to bees, and someone was reviewing my channel, I'd be talking less shit about them, quite frankly. But she doesn't seem to have learned that lesson. So as she sits here, not really aware of the terms of service of the platform she's on, threatening to strike people, it doesn't look that great, really. But, you know, she's being bullied, she's the victim. She does admit that she sometimes had accidental nudity. And my reaction to that is simply times plural. Guys, how many times have you been accidentally naked in the last year? And let's throw this out to people who currently have a presence online. How many times have you accidentally flashed your camera in the last year? I guess, if you're walking around your apartment half naked anyway, and you're on stream 2/3 of your life, maybe the chances are higher. But how many times would it take you doing that to learn not to do that, particularly when your channel is at stake? For me, I feel like once would be the maximum number if it happened at all. I'd probably, you know, be dressed on my streams if I did streams, but then I don't do streams because I like to be able to control what I put out. Crazy thought, I know. But she's like, sometimes I had accidental nudity. Like, if it's more than once, then that's not really accidental, is it? That's you not following guidelines. She's tired. This is very telling of what she's prioritizing. Bear in mind, she's got a very small audience at the moment, not so much in the general sense of the internet, but in terms of paying numbers. She doesn't have a lot of people in streams. She's not able to receive super chats at the moment. But she said she was tired and she was going to go to bed and have nightmares about big purple purses. So even with her channel potentially not coming back and that realization setting in a bit more, because she was saying, oh, I'll get into that in a minute. Sorry, but she's becoming more aware of that. And even with her income potentially being lower, it being harder to get those people back and have them following her around to different platforms, big purple purses that belong to Dee Dee are what is going to occupy her dreams. I don't think her priorities in order, but I'm sure she would disagree. She makes requests for people to spam YouTube under troll accounts like them. Again, if you're trying to convince YouTube you're going to be on your best behavior, this doesn't seem a great way to do it, because people are also capable of clipping you saying that and spamming YouTube with that. Please, I'm not suggesting you do that, but I'm saying if you're going to put something online, don't rely on it remaining private, whatever paywall it's behind. You know, like it maybe, and again, in a way she has never shown evidence of before, but maybe be a bit more careful, just a suggestion. And then she does say, this might be a blessing in disguise. I've been lazy, now I'm busting my ass. And I'm like, that's a kind of good point. We've discussed before, and it's been a discussion at large in the community before, how much better her life theoretically would be if she took less of it for granted and got off YouTube. I think mentally it would be a lot healthier. I think it would force her to look at responsibilities because she wouldn't have the safety net of YouTube. And maybe it will, but she's still relying on platforms. So when she says busting my ass, she doesn't mean she's going to go out and get a different kind of job, but she's going to have to rebuild quite substantially on different platforms. For the moment, she does have an audience. That's to her advantage, but she needs to put in the work and figure out monetized content on different platforms, and that's difficult for her. So will it be good for her long term? It would be nice to see a change of attitude, whether it ends up being YouTube or anywhere else. The realization that it can all go away in an instant would be good for a lot of people. Maybe not for her, we'll see. She still hasn't let go of the idea that it's not her fault. When she can realize her own personal responsibility, it would be really good for her. Whether she gets to that point or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure she ever will. But we don't have a final word from YouTube yet. We don't know if the channel is staying on or if she's going to be able to reinstate it. And I guess we will find out as time goes on. So that's where we are today, and hope you've enjoyed the update. I guess we'll see how things keep going, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.